Well, we all aged about 5 years just trying to get through this game in Oklahoma City. The Bucks win in double overtime, 136 to 132. They were incredibly shorthanded, but it gave us an opportunity to see some big performances from some of the other guys. We're going to talk about Jevon Carter, MarJon, Beauchamp, Splash Mountain. He's been around for a while, and he had some big moments late in this game. But the Bucks win. They're 10-1 in the season. I don't even know where to start with this game, but we're going to give it a shot. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find some other stuff over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. Of course, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen of every single day. And what better time to subscribe to Locked On Bucks than after a double OT, I don't know if I want to call it classic, but a double OT game of NBA basketball. This was awesome. I didn't think that we'd be recording this late because I thought that this game would have finished well over an hour ago, but we're actually only just a few minutes after this one finished. The Bucks were able to win 136 to 132. I mentioned some of the guys that went off. Where do you want to start? Because this one has to be a top 3 podium contestant for craziest games we're going to watch all season long.
I think I want to start with a shower and a cigarette, Kane.
Nice.
I gotta say, this was, by far, the fact that you had neither Giannis nor Jrue. This was by far, the game you look at. And granted, Oklahoma City, obviously a young team, they're not great. You just beat them by a ton without Giannis over the weekend. But, I came into this game looking at the guys that you're missing for the Bucks and just thinking, man, if they steal this win, that would be like, that would be an awesome win to snag a road win under these circumstances. And the first quarter, it's rare to hit 7 out of 11 threes and feel like your offense can't do anything, but somehow that was what it felt like for the Bucks. It felt like they could, was tweeting half jokingly that they could potentially set the NBA record for 3-pointers in a game and still not score 100 points because just absolutely nothing going inside. Bobby Portis struggled for most of the game, had a couple of big buckets in the overtime periods. Came in as a defensive replacement, actually, at points in the overtime periods. And Brook Lopez eventually really got it going and, used his size down the stretch for some big buckets. But yeah, started, really with just, all right, hopefully we just make a bunch of threes because, we're missing all of our shot creators. But, let's start with Jevon Carter. We obviously joked a lot last year about how, the 55% 3-point shooting after he arrived from Brooklyn was not something that we could count on him kind of continuing forever, but played well in the Chicago series last year, had an awesome preseason. Early part of this season, his shot has kind of come and gone. Ironically, had probably his best game of the early season over the weekend against the Thunder, battling Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to a draw or maybe even besting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that game. And wouldn't you know it, the two of those guys end up going, toe to toe again tonight. And for Jevon Carter to, again, basically, battle peak Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to a draw with 36 points and 12 assists. He just deserves so much credit. He's obviously has limitations. I'm amazed, and it's crazy. The 12 assists may be the more kind of crazy thing because I never feel like Jevon's a guy who is really creating easy shots for guys. And it's not like he could lean on Giannis just, finishing alley-oops and just making assists out of nothing tonight or something like that. So for him to put up those kind of numbers tonight on a night when they needed every last one of them was huge. And, especially the fourth quarter. Once they kind of started playing from the front of the fourth quarter, I was like, oh my God, they could actually win this game. And for them to then nearly blow it with just, completely getting annihilated on the boards, Josh Giddey and the Thunder just getting every offensive rebound. Bucks couldn't inbound the ball at times in the last few minutes, gave the ball away every time they went up for a rebound, I was just like nervous as hell. And it's like, why the hell am I caring so much about this game? This is a game they probably shouldn't win anyway. But with Carter playing the way he was, MarJon Beauchamp, we'll talk about him having, second career start and a new career high in scoring all in the second half. This is just one of those games like, man, you really want to pull this win out because, hey, it just feels like robbery, right? Being able to win a game where your 3 stars are all on the bench and with the role players, some of them playing obviously well above their heads and really stepping up. You just really want to grind out a win and, be able to go and finish out this kind of short road trip with that win under your belt. So again, not without its nervous moments. I swear I could feel my heart beating like really rapidly. Like, I don't think I've been this invested in a regular season game in like the last, fourth quarter down the stretch and in the overtimes. I don't think I was that like emotionally like nervous since maybe the Brooklyn game, regular season game late last year when Giannis hit the 3 to tie the to go ahead of Kareem in the scoring lead, and they ended up pulling out that win. That may be the last time I've been this kind of just anxious about a regular season game, which is crazy to say because again, it's a house money game. You're 9-1. If you lose a game under these circumstances, like it doesn't really say much. Yeah, it just this is one of those fun kinds of wins. You don't really think of these as like the great wins that you'll celebrate forever, but for us sickos, I mean, we're going to be talking about this game for a long time. I still think about, the Tim Frazier 53-minute Atlanta OT game when everybody was rested and him and, the Sterling Brown thought he might have had a big shot at the end of the game. And then Trae Young somehow randomly wins that game against a young Atlanta team. I still really wish they had won that game, Kane. And so I felt like today, kind of felt like in a weird way closure for some of these. I think what were they, like 0-5, 0-6 when all 3 of Giannis, Khris, and Jrue rest. So alas, can finally get that that elusive win when all of your stars are resting. And it took some years off my life, but it was ultimately, it was a fun game once it was over. Let me say that. I don't know how fun it was while it was happening, but when it was over, it was pretty fun.
So I've been waiting for an opportunity for a long, long time to be able to mention Bonzi Colson once again on this podcast, and you just provided me with the ultimate opportunity. Bonzi Colson had huge, I think he put up pretty big numbers in that game, played big minutes.
Played like 45 minutes. Yeah.
I don't know where he is in the world, but I hope he's doing well. But there are so many different aspects of this game, and you sort of touched on a bunch of them. But I think people listen to this podcast for a long time. We're similar in a lot of ways, but I think we're also different in some ways. And I was like, there was no stress for me in this game. I had my feet up on the coffee table. I was laughing. I was enjoying it. I was having a good time. Now, I will say, I really wanted the Bucks to be able to pull out this game at the end. I mean, obviously, because I wanted them to win. But for the most part, because I wanted those guys that played so... Like, I wanted Jevon Carter to be rewarded with the win when he scored 36 points. I wanted MarJon Beauchamp to be rewarded for the 19 points that he had there. And it just felt like a game that was literally never going to end. Tied after the first quarter, tied after the second quarter, 3 points at the end of the third. Kind of disappointing for the history books. Tied at the end of regulation, then went to double overtime. So absolute insanity. And there was nothing more certain in my life that when Gilgeous-Alexander hit that awesome step back 3, and there's only 0.6 on the clock, and somehow Brook Lopez is able to get fouled while trying to finish the lob put back. He was always going to miss one, and this was going to double overtime. There was nothing more certain. And by the way, the second free throw bounced around, back rim, front rim, then finally went down. So there was a chance that wasn't going to go down as well. I want to talk about MarJon Beauchamp next, though. But today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and specifically LinkedIn Jobs, because we understand if you've ever been in the position where you're looking to hire new people. I don't know if you have, Frank, but I'm sure it can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is pretty simple. You put your job up, then all you have to do is add the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That'll spread the word. People will know that you're hiring. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll be on there. I'll be checking out this job, potentially chucking in an application. Frank would look at me and say, no, I know this guy. I know that I can't trust him with the job. But the point is, go to LinkedIn Jobs, because it helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So MarJon Beauchamp scoreless at halftime. So he gets another starting opportunity because of all the guys that are out, Frank, and he's scoreless at halftime. Again, there were some moments where he looked, whether it's a little antsy, a little nervous, just mistakes. I mean, he's in the very, very early portion of his career. And then he got himself going with an offensive rebound and a putback. And then all of a sudden, the scoring floodgates opened. And this man finished with 19 points to go with 8 rebounds and a couple of steals as well. And, of course, the three-point shooting that he was knocking down all those threes. You can't expect that night to night. But just watching him, it felt like, again, like he stood at the stage, as I said, so early, where he just gets like one little thing that goes his way. He does something nice. And on this occasion, it was fundamental offensive rebound, put back. That's what Bud would probably want more of from him, those types of plays. And then all of a sudden, he was able to get himself going. And he was shooting with some serious confidence. He had a smile on his face, and he was having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line for MarJon figuring out, like, how do you be aggressive but not, stupid with that, And I know his teammates and coaches, they're encouraging him to, hey, look for your shot. Don't be bashful about it. I think, there's definitely some moments off the dribble. I mean, I think his first 2 drives in this game, he got ripped for turnovers. Like again, like him driving, he just cannot get to the rim without getting stripped. It seems like every other drive he's going to choke, cough it up, just isn't strong enough on the ball. But as we've talked about, I mean, the bar for him is knock down open 3-point looks, get some garbage baskets off putbacks, loose balls, running in transition, and then just use your size and full athletic tools defensively. And I think defensively, certainly the physicality stuff, knowing where the line is, has been a big problem. He fouled out last game. He fouled 5 fouls again tonight, and he's been a foul machine. That's obviously been probably the biggest learning curve for him defensively, is just figuring out like what level of physicality he can get away with. But he's got the physical tool set, I think, to be a really intriguing defensive prospect. He had one moment today where he bit on a little head fake. I forget if it was Trey Mann or who was it, and kind of then got a blow by. But I have to say, I mean, I got nervous. I don't know that I'm going to say that I wanted him in down the stretch at the end of regulation, but the Bucks, it was weird because you had Poku on Brook, and Brook had to be conscious of Poku's 3-point shooting. So Brook was getting drawn away from the paint. And then you had just this like really small group for the Bucks otherwise with, I think it was principally obviously Jevon, George, Grayson, and I'm trying to remember I guess it was West probably was the other guy. So it was a really small group, and it just felt like, man, they were, they were not great at the point of attack. And then especially, with a guy like Shea, who's big, Giddey's big, all these guys, they have good size. Dort is big. And then were getting killed on the boards. And part of me was like, man, how do we get some more size in here? And I was kind of at a moment, I was like, man, like, do you put Beauchamp in there just to get like a little more defensive size? They didn't do that at the end of regulation, but we did see him during the overtime periods. And he was out there, and I didn't stand out, didn't make any mistakes. So, good that he was able to still get some looks there and play in some high leverage minutes. And he was obviously part of the group that made that big run. I think he was like plus 14 or something like that for the game. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a roller coaster with a guy like him. I think came into this game shooting 4 of 21 from 3. He was 5 for 8 in this one game. So now he's 9 for 29, whatever that is, 30% or so for the season. So, the last couple of games have been peak to trough. The amplitude has been pretty significant, going from that really fun game in Minnesota to starting and really struggling against, I guess it was OKC the next night. Now obviously getting an opportunity with a bunch of guys out. So, I'm just kind of happy that we've been able to see him kind of sneak in these real runs of minutes and him getting some of this experience while the team's been, dealing with injuries and the fact that you've been able to get him out there and continue to win games at a high level and you haven't had to sacrifice a bunch to do it, is just a really big plus developmentally. I think it's kind of, again, when the Bucks are at full strength, when you've got Khris and Jrue and Giannis and Pat Connaughton and eventually Joe Ingles, like, how do you find minutes for MarJon Beauchamp? I don't know that you do in that scenario, but I think we always said, even over the summer, we said, hey, that especially when Ingles was signed, and then when the Khris news broke about his injury, we kind of said, like, look, it's not that he's like going to be ready to be an out of the box NBA contributor, because very few rookies are, but if he's going to get a chance to at least maybe get his opportunity to get some playing time and get his feet wet in the NBA, it may come early in the season, right? That's when they're going to need some depth on the wing. And, Jordan Moore's had a very up and down period as well. He really struggled on both ends tonight. So thankfully, between him and MarJon, seems like, you're probably never going to get both of them playing well at the same time, but hopefully if you're going to continue to playing both those guys, one of them kind of pops a little bit. And, credit to MarJon, didn't do anything in the first half offensively and bounces back and, is able to make shots, make plays in the second half. And as you said, just, I think between Jevon and MarJon, that just makes it a lot more fun to win this game because those guys can really enjoy it. And, they don't have to be excited for their own personal success while having to be like, yeah, that's fine, but we lost. And we know, obviously, this team is full of guys that want to win games. And so for them to experience success and win games, that's obviously just a really fun little footnote. And again, 82 games, we know there are going to be games where the best players are resting. And so to steal a win and do it behind guys just, again, stepping up and filling those big shoes, just really fun. Another, again, just kind of different kind of fun win in a season that has been obviously a very fun one so far.
And it's probably even more fun because when he had the 14-point game, we already discussed this. I think you said the number was 5 assists came from Giannis. So because of the skill set that he has, that he is athletic, he can run. Giannis should be able to get him some buckets if he just runs the lane appropriately, gets to the right spots, and then he's going to find those open threes. But to do it in a game where really they needed all the threes, like all the threes felt like, gee, the Bucks really needed that at the moment. It was cool and it was a little bit different. And I don't know whether it's definitive just yet, but your point about sitting there and thinking, gee, maybe they put MarJon in there for size. And it's not like he's a lockdown NBA defender right now, but it does feel like, you weren't sitting there on the couch and saying, gee, put in Jordan Nwora in the game. And it does, I don't know whether it's definitively switched, but I always just think back to the draft and we said, look, this will be a slow burn with MarJon. This team's really, really good. So it might be hard for him to come into and get regular rotation minutes, as you said, but the skill set made sense. The type of guy that, projects long-term, that can defend, will be athletic, and then the swing skill with so many young players is just the three-point shot. But it was, one of those moments I was sitting back and sort of thinking the same thing and saying, out of these two guys, who knows what the projections are for this season? But Beauchamp just does little things that are probably more Bud-like. I think, is that fair to say? It seems like more the type of player that Bud would be into.
I think that's a very fair thing to say. I don't think it's a coincidence that Mike Budenholzer is the coach of this team and that they picked MarJon Beauchamp in the draft, right? Not that Bud is the one, calling the draft picks himself, but we know he's got a voice in that. And, we saw it going back to Dante, his previous first round pick that has been here while he was here. We know he really liked Dante. And again, as I say, it was instant impact from Dante, but he played pretty well, had good energy. 3-point shot wasn't there really for Dante when he first was in the league, got hurt, and obviously didn't play a whole lot his rookie year. But cool to see Bud. Again, I don't think you can look at Bud and say like, oh, he's just burying the rookie, and why isn't he playing this guy? MarJon's numbers suck right now, but again, because he can defend and there is the upside, and you can see from a role-playing offensive player standpoint, like he can do some things that let him be a complimentary guy. He's not like out there being, ball hog chucker guy that, is dominating the ball and it's like, dude, get out of the way. I think he's a guy that again has that kind of Bucks DNA. And they're Bud's trying to find ways to get him some run, and obviously he's had now a couple opportunities to really show what he can do, and cool that they get another win in part because of his contributions.
So we mentioned this on the podcast yesterday when I podcasted with Justin. Go back and listen to that if you missed it. Just a bunch of stats we rattled off through the season so far. And we did talk about Khris and Pat and all these guys, and they're all on the road. And I don't know how often we've seen Khris on the road so far this season, but it does feel like the cavalry is close to arriving for the Bucks and getting some of those.
Not very much, because they've basically played no road games, right? So he's had to have been at all the road games, right? He was in Philly, and then other than that, it's just these 2 games so far this week, right? So don't blame Khris. Don't make it seem like Khris isn't going to road games. Come on,
he's on a trip. He's on a road trip. And he's actually clearly a man that loves travel, because he also traveled to Oshkosh last week.
So, yeah, he's traveling. He hasn't missed any road trips. Don't make it seem like it's weird to see him out there.
Well, I'm just saying he's getting close to returning to the game, and he's come on a lengthy road trip when he could stay back and scrimmage with Oshkosh and the herd and get in that extra run. But they're like, no, come with the team. Yeah. So you don't need to shout down my extreme optimism for.
He wants to. Every NBA player wants to get that Oklahoma City road trip in, right? Everybody wants to get some time in Bricktown.
Well, I know why he's doing it. Yeah, they do, and but they're heading to San Antonio next, so he wants to go to George Hill's ranch. That's why he's come on this trip. He wants to go to the ranch and see whatever George Hill's going on out there.
That's probably where they're going to go tomorrow. That's probably where they're going to go tomorrow, right? Go to George Hill's ranch. It's their one time a year.
My only other bench comment is stop jumping on Joe Ingles. All these guys, every time something big happens, Pat's jumping on his back. Let's watch the knee, guys. Watch the knee. This is some fragile merchandise we got on the bench here for the Milwaukee Bucks. We want him to get back healthy. Back to the game. We've spoke a lot about, and tonight was different because they were super short-handed, but we spoke about the minutes of the vets and how often they've been playing. But Brook Lopez plays 45, nearly 46 minutes in this game, and I know it's double overtime, but gee, you probably have to go back to Game 7 against Brooklyn in the playoffs. Yeah. And then before that, I don't know when the last time he would have played 46 minutes in a game. You get 36 from George Hill as well, and even Wesley Matthews nearly tips over 30. So some of those vets that we were talking about the other night and their minutes, and Brook Lopez in particular, maybe his minute totals have been up a bit high this season. He obviously had a huge load to carry tonight, and it definitely felt, and I was waiting for it throughout this game, are the Bucks going to take advantage of the size of Brook Lopez? You said that Poku stretches the floor the other way, but would the Bucks try and use the size of Brook Lopez on the offensive end? And I don't think it was always pretty, but there was big moments in the fourth quarter and then overtime where Brook Lopez was able to find his spots and find a way to score and ultimately just be a little bit more physical. We saw Bobby Portis get to the paint, and he was able to kind of fumble his way to a basket late in, I believe it was regulation, if I can remember all these periods here where he was able to score. And I think Frank's frozen on their screen here, if I had to guess. But the size and the veterans eventually took a toll in this game. And when you're playing such a young team, I know the Bucks had all these stars out, but it also pays to have those vets that you can throw to and play big minutes and in big moments use their physicality. And despite the fact the Bucks were smashed on the offensive glass, it felt that they were able to find different ways to score using the size advantage they had, particularly over the slender man, Poku, who seemed to be the butt of a lot of jokes for Marcus Johnson throughout this night.
Yeah, and I was just looking at 6 minutes in Game 7.
I think your internet is about to cark it. Have you paid your bill? Have you paid your internet bill, Frank?
I paid my AT&T wireless, which is how I'm connected to you right now. I can see you fine too. Like everything looks good on my end, so I don't know.
No,
but,
you sound like a robot.
Yeah.
I must admit it's not working all that well. But I will say the one joke that Marcus did make about Poku was the fact that Lisa said he was billed as 190 pounds, and Marcus said yes, he would be 190 if he had 10-pound weights on either ankle. So yeah, Marcus seemed to have a good time. He was calling him Luka Doncic light, which I thought was an interesting comparison there. But let's see, how's the internet? He's still frozen, Frank. I don't think this is working.
Yeah, I think the basketball guys just don't want us to talk anymore about this game, probably, huh?
All right. Well, we can wrap it up. We're still going to do a podcast tomorrow, so there'll be plenty more to talk about as we move forward. And then, as we already mentioned, the Bucks will play the Spurs, so the road trip will continue. But for now, at least, they're 10-1. They avoided the first losing streak of the season, and it was a fun one. It might have been a stressful one for Frank and for a lot of our listeners, who I did see saw some outrage on Twitter. I saw some people starting to get a little bit angry, a little bit frustrated with this game of basketball. But in the end, the Bucks win it, and who knows? It might be the craziest game we get to watch all season. So let us know what you thought on YouTube. Jump in the comments. At least leave a comment. One comment. That really helps us. But get involved and tell us what you thought about this game as the Bucks win. We'll have a podcast tomorrow again. I believe Camille will be on the show. I haven't asked her yet, but she'll, as I normally do, she'll probably listen to this. And then Camille Batsingle is back again. We can't even understand Frank anymore. So anyway, make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It'll keep you up to date with all the other sports stuff going on around the world. And as I said, subscribe to YouTube, audio platforms, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. Bucks 10-1. We'll speak to you guys tomorrow.